faced him twice in college. He was awful against Oregon. Now, I know it's Wyoming, but Patrick Mahomes, who got, some naysayers out of college, was wildly productive. And don't tell me you knew he was going to be great. Nobody did.
His accuracy is very spotty, and he threw a bunch of interceptions. Did it last year, and he did it this year. And whenever he's played anybody who's halfway decent, I'm not talking about like Alabama defense, I'm talking about Oregon's defense, Nebraska's defense last year. He's really struggled.
That was probably my biggest mistake of my GM days, was not taking Josh.
The NFL draft is one of the toughest things to get right with who you pick. So-called experts try to predict the perfect fit and development plan for hundreds of athletes with different bodies, play styles, and levels of readiness for the highest level. But what do you do when all signs point to yes, despite everyone telling you no? When you have a player that is so physically gifted that he has to be considered a top pick, but whose resume doesn't show you anything special. Well, in today's video, we're gonna go over the fascinating journey of a quarterback who defied all odds to become one of the NFL's most dominant players. And despite his undeniable talent, he wasn't taken first in the draft. So what held teams back? This is why Josh Allen wasn't the #1 overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft.
In the 2018 NFL draft, the Cleveland Browns select.
Since being drafted in 2018, Josh Allen has transformed the Bills from a middle-of-the-pack, boring franchise to perennial contenders who have to be included in every Super Bowl conversation. I mean, hell, he already owns pretty much every record the Bills could offer to a quarterback, and he still hasn't even turned 30 yet. He's pushed the Chiefs to their absolute breaking point in the playoffs multiple times and has posterized pretty much every other team in the league at one point or another. Like, if we really want to start saying stuff about Josh Allen, he owns the AFC East in a similar way to how Tom Brady did it for 20 years. And not only that too, but despite all the inconsistencies that this team has on defense and on the offensive line, they are still a team that nobody wants to play come January. And it is all because of the man wearing number 17 on the Buffalo Bills. But if Josh Allen is this dominant, even just a few years into his career, how did 6 teams pass on him, especially in a year when so many teams were searching for their franchise quarterback? When coming into the 2018 NFL draft, all eyes were on the massive high-ceiling quarterbacks that were all throughout this draft. 5 signal callers were considered first-rounders, with Mason Rudolph even in consideration in case all 5 ended up being top picks. Among the teams looking to fill the most important position in sports, there were the Browns, Cardinals, Bills, Jets, and Broncos. Add to that teams like the Giants and Steelers looking for long-term replacements for aging starters, and not a single person could say for sure who was going to make a move, stick and pick, or drop a draft day bombshell. After the Cleveland Browns secured the first overall pick with a 1-15 record, they had their pick of the class and chaos followed behind them. On top of that too, the Browns also held the 4th overall pick thanks to a prior trade with Houston. In addition to this, the Jets traded 3 seconds and a first to move up 3 spots and secure one of the top options. And with so many quarterback needy teams being active and moving up, it really wasn't a question of whether Josh Allen was going to go early. It was more of the question of who was actually going to take a chance on this kid. As we all know, Josh didn't really start out as the overwhelming talent he has grown into. He was a farm boy from California, he didn't have a ton of college opportunities, and enrolled at Ridley Junior College to begin his journey to the next level. And after pure dominance at Ridley, his coaches experienced higher level attention, but only Eastern Michigan and Wyoming showed interest in Allen. Luckily, Wyoming scouts reportedly saw flashes of Carson Wentz and Josh and pulled him in as a project.
Well, he's Wentz 2.0 in this regard. He's really big, and he's got a lot of tools in terms of big arm, athletic, can make a lot of plays. He also played for Craig Bohl and the staff that Wentz had at North Dakota State. Those guys moved on to Wyoming. And also like Wentz, he was a no-name recruit out of high school. Nobody was interested in him.
Well, I think it certainly is. It just comes down to, I wouldn't want to coach against Brett Favre. There's some of the things I think where Carson may be a little bit more cautious, and not cautious, but measured in his decision making. Josh is going to pull the trigger. Now, sometimes it may not be a great decision, but I think he's learned. But like I said, he'll walk the edge, and I think that a lot of the NFL guys that I've talked to, I've mentioned that to him. But there are great things about that attribute of him being able to go out there and make and extend plays.
And when he did get to Wyoming too, he was actually required to medically redshirt his first year. But when he finally got the starting quarterback job, there was no taking it away from him. In 2016, he threw for over 3,200 yards and 28 touchdowns, rushing for over 500 yards and 7 more. He did throw 15 interceptions, and his closest advisors told him that he needed to stay in college one more year to prove that he was more than just a hodgepodge mix of physical tools. Coming into that 2017 season though, there was already buzz that Allen would be the #1 overall pick in the coming draft based on his existing trajectory. And I mean, that season he was solid too, going 8-3 and throwing for 1,800 yards and 16 touchdowns in just 11 games. All of his numbers came down to earth, but he was cleaner, only throwing 6 interceptions. After a special blend of arm strength and rushing ability got the attention of bigger audiences, Allen became unanimously one of the top prospects in the 2018 class. Even though his grades at the combine weren't exceptional, many experts liked the flashes of potential, so he was seen as by far one of the highest ceiling players in the draft, more than worth a top pick. The thing that so many people actually kind of overlooked and tried to compare Josh Allen to coming out of college was the talent that was surrounding Allen compared to the other top draft picks. And this is honestly no hate towards Wyoming or the situation that he was in, but honestly, you the viewer, can you go and name me anybody from the 2016-2017 Wyoming Cowboys team? Because I can't besides Josh Allen, and prove me wrong if you can. And not only that, I'm pretty sure that none of those guys even play in the NFL besides Josh Allen. And by my count, I think there are about 10 to 12 guys that are from that team that did make it or at least get a tryout in the NFL somewhere. But even then, I'm like 90% sure that most of those guys weren't even on the offensive side of the ball. They were mostly on the defensive side. So that just proves my point even more. So with that being said, Josh Allen had to thrive in a system that didn't necessarily put him in a position to succeed, like a stacked Oklahoma or Alabama. But that's the thing, he still managed to make himself great, but he just wasn't able to be so great that he set himself apart from the rest of the class. Now, coming into the 2018 draft, though, all the other quarterback prospects were valuable, but in kind of their own each unique ways. Like, some either had very good resumes, or some even had very elevated traits that they just were extremely good at. The leader of the pack was USC's Sam Darnold, one of the weaker athletes in the class, as Darnold was an elite producer with a prototypical body who played better than he tested. His field vision and decision-making was praised, with heaps of praise being piled onto his mental toughness and mobility. As a redshirt freshman, he went 9-1, turning around a mid-USC program, and he remained the starter in 2017, going 11-3 with over 4,000 yards through the air. But turnovers were Darnold's kryptonite, with 20 interceptions thrown in his final 20 college games, and his arm was the weakest of his peers. That being said, though, he was really easily able to kind of bounce back when he did have those turnovers throughout those games that he did play. And many scouts kind of assumed that once he got coached up too, the turnovers would kind of subside and go away.
To me, Sam Darnold was the #1 pick in next year's NFL draft, and even after being here live and watching Sam Darnold, to me, he's still the first pick in the NFL draft next year if he decides to come out. And throughout his career, time and time again, when the play breaks down, he has the ability somehow to just extend the play, keep his eyes downfield, and throw strikes. He's still accurate on the move. To me, it's so impressive. To me, that's what makes him truly unique. And to me, that's why if he decides to come out, he's still the first pick in next year's NFL draft.
He was pretty much the consensus top quarterback prospect for the entire draft process in 2018, considered the most ready to go. His physical tools were nothing compared to Josh Allen, but he performed at the highest level of college ball, and Allen turned the ball over on a higher rate in fewer games. The other top prospect for 2018 was basically the definition of just highly touted. And it's kind of crazy too, because in my personal opinion, he was nowhere near the athlete that Josh Allen was coming out of college. Baker Mayfield of Oklahoma graded out as the top prospect in the class thanks to 15,000 total yards and 152 career touchdowns. The Heisman winner in 2017 captured attention for his aggressive play and fierce passion, but had a drunken arrest on his record from college that followed him during the scouting process.
Baker Mayfield, you look awful. Just awful. You do not look like a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And your career is in jeopardy because that's how sorry you look. I'm not saying it to get on you. I'm saying it to get you up because I know you're better than this, and I'm not rooting against you.
Despite this, though, he had been an All-American every year of his Oklahoma career and never missed an All-Big 12 roster. Even after losing a season of his college career due to a technicality when he was walking on at Oklahoma, Mayfield persisted. He did have some personality flaws, getting in trouble multiple times for bombastic outbursts and insults hurled at opponents and rival fans.
He also has one win. Go cheer on basketball.
But despite his quirks, a Heisman Trophy, as well as pretty much every quarterback award available in 2017, were earned by Mayfield in his senior season and washed away a lot of those concerns. His story of resilience and his fiery personality were all seen as bonuses, even if he was considered a little bit volatile. Josh Rosen from UCLA, though, was the complete opposite of Mayfield and probably the polar opposite of Josh Allen as well.
Well, I just haven't seen a lot of rich people playing in the NFL.
That he often came across as a spoiled rich kid, because I think that's basically what he is, bottom line.
He happens to be really, really good at football, but I don't know if that's really, really his passion.
His college career had ping-ponged between great and mediocre, and while his decision-making wasn't a major concern, he didn't show any signs of being special physically. He boomed in his freshman season, winning Pac-12 Offensive Freshman of the Year and being a freshman All-American, but he plummeted in his sophomore year and only topped his freshman year numbers as a junior. Despite this, though, he was still seen as on par with Darnold and one of the more pro-ready guys. In 3 seasons, he threw for more than 9,000 yards and had 59 passing touchdowns and peaked at the right time, showing career highs in completion percentage, yards, touchdowns, and pass rating as a junior. One of the only pure pocket passers in the class, Rosen would only fit with very specific teams, but on the right team, he was expected to be able to start right away. Like Mayfield, though, Rosen was still somehow seen as better than Josh Allen thanks to more years starting and better programs for his development, but his physical tools weren't in the same galaxy. The final prospect to lightly kind of touch on that did kind of have a lot of just things going on around him during the 2018 NFL draft was Lamar Jackson.
I think the best quarterback in the draft is Lamar Jackson from Louisville. I mean, I know you're looking at me. I didn't think I was going to be saying that 2-3 days ago when I started in on this. I didn't. I started watching. I went Josh Allen 1, Baker Mayfield 2. Then I watched Sam Darnold. I watched Josh Rosen. And then I watched Lamar Jackson, and I came away and I write notes. I got my notebook. I could show you everything I write. And I came away and I said, Lamar Jackson's the best quarterback in this draft.
Jackson was always kind of a consensus first-round pick with his rushing ability, but he had concerns about his translation to the league from a passing standpoint. A massive arm like Josh Allen's was much more valuable to scouts. No one really expected Lamar to be drafted before Allen, but both were looking for the right situation to develop, just the opposite of NFL-ready prospects alongside them.
What do you actually think? Where would you draft him?
I would draft him in the second round, because I think at that point, the risk reward is there. If he doesn't make it a quarterback, you have a great fallback.
Jackson did win the Heisman Trophy in 2016 after lighting the ACC on fire, and his counting stats were exceptional, especially considering that, like Allen, he didn't have many NFL pieces around him. Allen's leg up on Lamar, though, was that, nobody wanted to see Josh Allen run routes.
We now know a number of teams have also requested that Jackson work out with the wide receivers as well.
With so much attention to try and convert Jackson to a wideout or running back, Allen got much larger looks and profiles as a passer, meaning that teams had a better idea of how he could develop in the right system. Again, Lamar was never going to be taken ahead of Allen, but the two were more similar than most people thought during the pre-draft process. Draft night came though, and it was pretty clear that quarterbacks were going to go 1, 2, 3. The Browns surprised most predictors by selecting Baker Mayfield, opting to go with the quarterback from the best college program, and also reportedly loving Baker's passion. The Giants absolutely shocked everybody also, or at least most draft experts, by taking Saquon Barkley at number 2 instead of drafting a successor for Eli Manning, a choice that continues to haunt them as we all just saw what happened with Daniel Jones. And then as we all know, the Jets took Darnold off the board at 3 to even things out. But then for some reason, the Broncos took a defensive player instead of going quarterback.
With the 5th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Denver Broncos select Bradley Chubb, defensive end, NC State.
I'm wondering, how long is it going to take him to realize that I passed on him and took Bradley and Chubb instead?
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it took him 2.5 holes to bring it up, and I loved him, right?
Yeah.
But it just, didn't
was
work
your
out.
type.
And
That's
he
the
was
one.
my
Yeah.
type, and you're
Ah.
right. That was probably my biggest mistake of my GM days,
Well-
was not taking Josh.
However, with two of the top options already gone in the draft, the Buffalo Bills were not going to try and wait until the 12th pick to land the quarterback they wanted. Like, it kind of was already given that the Steelers and Cardinals were going to take a quarterback, or at least were eyeing somebody to take at the quarterback spot. So Buffalo wasted no time in doing what they had to do.
Traded up and made a deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm told they're giving up 2 second-round picks and number 12 for the right to come up to 7. Is it going to be Josh Rosen or Josh Allen? That is the choice right now for the Buffalo Bills. They believe, get their quarterback of the future.
Buffalo Bills select Josh Allen, quarterback, Wyoming.
After 2 years with dual threat quarterback Tyrod Taylor, the Bills knew they wanted a blend of passing and mobility. And the thing holding them back with Taylor seemed to be his physical ceiling. Like, I mean, honestly, when you look at the pick, it kind of just seems too obvious and just blatantly obvious, honestly, that they were going to take Josh Allen. And while it sure wasn't guaranteed that he was going to be the day one starter, he was going to be the future of this franchise. As promised, Allen was the backup to start his career, but earned the starting job almost immediately thanks to poor play by Nathan Peterman. And in his rookie year, Josh Allen showed everything that he was completely capable of, whether it was being good or even bad at sometimes. In 11 starts, he was 5-6 and threw 10 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. In addition, though, he posted over 600 rushing yards with 8 scores on the ground, and this showed enough to the Bills to invest in his success.
It seemed like Stephon Diggs wanted out of Minnesota, and he got out of there, and now he's in Buffalo. How do you feel about this entire deal?
In 2019, the Bills went 10-6, returning to the playoffs and challenging the Deshaun Watson-led Texans in a loss. From there, though, the arrow strictly pointed up. The Bills have won at least 11 games every year starting in 2020 and have at least one playoff win against every AFC contender not named the Chiefs. Allen has consistently been a 4,000-yard passer even in 2023, which was seen as a down year. His rushing ability has continued to be elite, averaging 500 yards per season and getting his team to almost 10 touchdowns on the ground every single year. And don't get me wrong, because he still definitely does make mistakes, especially when you consider that he threw 18 interceptions in 2023, I think averaging around 13 per year. But I mean, the dude's just freak of nature, and being able to turn any just 10-yard loss to a touchdown or a 50-yard play makes him just a household name in the NFL. Like, I mean, even without big name receivers in 2023, he has been having one of the best seasons of his career and has shown renewed discipline as the Bills dominate the AFC East for the 5th straight year. And I mean, even compared directly to the other 2018 quarterbacks that were taken in that draft, it's not even close. And now, yes, I know Baker Mayfield has found new life in Tampa Bay, but there is no doubt that Tampa Bay would trade the quarterbacks 1-for-1 in a heartbeat. Sam Darnold is in a similar situation, having finally found a spark in Minnesota, but after busting out of the 2 other teams first, you'd have a hard time convincing me the Browns or the Jets wouldn't have wanted to change their picks with the benefit of hindsight. And as for Josh Rosen, yeah, no, we all know what happened with Josh Rosen. I'll just play the clip.
Honestly, I was pretty pissed off as I saw teams going by and passing on me. There were 9 mistakes made ahead of me, and I'll make sure over in the next decade or so that they'll know they made those mistakes.
The only really fair comparison is Lamar Jackson, who has flourished in Baltimore and been much more decorated than Allen. But like we said before, the two quarterbacks are much more similar than they are different. Both have had to develop with questionable coaching and team building around them, and Lamar just happened to land in a situation that was more ready for him immediately. If Allen had been a Raven, it's not that far of a stretch to say that he'd be an MVP right now also. But don't worry, I still do think that Josh Allen is having an MVP type of season right now. But also the most important piece I think to mention too is that neither of these top quarterbacks would have developed the way they would if they didn't land exactly where they did. Josh Allen probably should have gone first overall in the 2018 draft class, but frankly, it's a good thing he didn't, because for his sake, the Browns probably aren't allowed to have a good quarterback ever. And if you want to see exactly how the players feel, and even some NFL legends feel about Josh Allen, then click this video right here.